And one way to maximize the length of your drift is to put a reach cast into that. And a reach cast is just as that was a good reach cast there, Norm. Keep that drift going. That'll be a good float. A reach cast is when that loop of your fly line is straightening out. You slide your rod through the air across your body to put an in the air mend in that fly line, just as that loop's straightening out. So when you're drift fishing, especially from a drift boat, especially when you're fishing a bank, it's always a great idea to be able to have a good reach cast. If you can put a reach cast in there, those flies already land at that downstream angle that's so essential when you're fishing dry flies to fish that see a lot of pressure. We're gonna switch up and do some indicator nymph and fishing some deep nymphs down below. We haven't had much success with fishing dries on the surface. Granted, we've had some hits and some eats, but it certainly has not been stellar. So we're gonna see if the fish are not moving much, and we got to get down there to them. So we're gonna put on 2 weighted nymphs below an indicator and just fish deep nymphing. A good general rule for the depth to fish those nymphs with your indicator, and here we have a weighted fly and our indicator. A good general rule is 1.5 to 2 times the depth of the water that we're fishing. But it also depends on the speed of the current and the kind of bugs you want to fish.
So in this river, you have to keep adjusting the depth because you're getting quite a bit of variation, or
yeah, I like to
stretch your river pretty constant.
The depth varies, and I like to fish indicators that you can easily move and slide up and down the leader. So all I have right here is it's just a corky. It's just an indicator that you slip the leader through a hole and you slide the toothpick up through that hole. And when you're ready to change the depth that those weighted nymphs are fishing, you just pull the toothpick out and slide it up along that leader. Slide the indicator up the leader, put that toothpick in, and then you'll see that that's increased the depth that those weighted nymphs are going to be fishing. So say we're fishing water that is slow, those nymphs will have more time to get down because that current's not moving very fast. Those nymphs sink quicker. If we're fishing water that's faster, we want those nymphs to actually be fishing shallower below that indicator because those flies will get down a little bit quicker. And those flies right now, what those flies are doing is those flies are just floating just above the surface of the water. Sometimes they're banging structure and bumping along, and we're hoping that, like, give that a hit. Anytime that indicator dives down, we're hoping that that's going to be a fish. Because those flies are fishing so close to the bottom, sometimes it's, hitting weeds, hitting rocks and things like that. But when you're deep nymphing like this, it takes a lot of imagination. And you have to just kind of guess when that's going to be a fish. A lot of times it can be obvious. If that indicator really dives down, really stops moving, most likely that's a fish. Especially if it starts moving upstream, it's a fish. And you set the hook. When you're fishing tight to the bank like this with nymphs, you have to be aware that that indicator can signal anything. It can signal those flies bumping the rocks. It can also signal a fish. So anytime you think you're close to structure, just be aware of that, but also have in mind that fish hang near structure. And so there we go. That's a hit right there. That's a fish. That's a trout.
All right.
Good hook set.
That was a textbook take, wasn't it? Just, you were describing to me how I got to look for every little nuance, every little bump, and to strike as soon as I see it. And right after you said that,
good work.
The fly just hesitated slightly and set the hook.
That's a fish. I think that's a trout. I think it's a live one. Yeah, nice jump.
Nice jump. Nice jump.
Good work. Good strips. Good rod tip angle. I can slide out into this. Let's take him to the left side of the boat.
Okay.
As soon as you feel that head give, you can pull him in, but as soon as he wants to take it, let him take it. Good work. That's a decent boat. That was a great jump.
Looks like he took the dropper.
Yeah, he ate that little dropper. It's a little tungsten pheasant tail nymph, about a size 20 actually.
Oh, a little dig. Now something that a lot of people,
Oh, great jump.
Nice. A lot of people don't realize is that, you know, these fish, they're not 24 inches, but they fight like they're 24 inches.
Yeah, this
and
is
that's
a good
because,
sized bow,
well, they're
yeah.
so strong here because of all the food, right?
Yep. Yeah, they get to eat a lot of food. That's why the bug that we're fishing is so small. Once you get his head up, Colin.
Yeah, he's just got
If
around
you
here
can
and
slide
set a
him to
bow
me.
on me. I'll get his head up again.
There we go. Just skate that baby on in.
I should say I'm using a 5-weight rod here.
Keep skating, keep that head up.
And what's the tippet you have on the bottom?
We got 4X to the little pheasant tail. Decent little bow.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? Good work.
Okay, let him go. Now, one of the things I know a lot of people would be interested in knowing about Patrick that we've been doing for the last hour or so is changing the presentation of this nymph rig relative to the water conditions. In other words, like right now we're in a little bit slower water and we're starting to get into faster water. So you're having me put the rig out at different angles off the bow or off the beam of the boat here. Could you talk a little bit about how that works and you know how it affects the amount of I mend and where I'm mending?
Yeah, again, you want that indicator to float as natural as possible on the surface of the water. So if we're floating along and we're drifting about in water that's about the same speed as what the boat's floating in, you'll just need a good initial mend to set it up, get that line above it with a good upstream mend, and then just let it float. Just keep tracking it with that rod tip. As long as that fly line under your rod tip is moving at the same speed as the indicator, and that is accomplished by tracking that indicator with your rod tip. Again, pointing your rod tip at that indicator, following it down the stream. If we're floating at the same speed of water as that indicator is, it's going to drift fine. You won't need a lot of mends, a lot of line management. You won't need to feed a lot of slack. You can just kind of relax and just let it hunt and let it float.